Welcome back to Making Number Sense Make Sense. Today I'd like to talk with you about 5 games that you can use to help your students learn about decomposing numbers. Decomposing numbers is an area of number sense that is a little bit more challenging to teach. I know my first couple of years teaching, I didn't really understand the best way to teach my students how to understand that concept. So I feel like I've really cracked the code on how best to teach it, and my students really took to these games and also the lessons that I use for decomposing numbers. If you'd like to see an example of a lesson that I used, I will have that linked in the info bar below, as well as my entire decomposing numbers lesson plan or done for your lessons that you can use in your classroom. So after our main mini lesson and some guided practice, I like to release the students to practice those skills in their math centers, but in a way that will be easy for them to keep up with and won't require so much attention from me, so that I'm free to circulate around the room or meet with small groups during this time. The first game is called How Many More? And in How Many More, the recording sheet has a spinner on it, and then they have to spin their spinner, and then whatever number they spun, they would color in that many squares on their recording sheet, and then with a different color, fill in the extra squares that they had. So then that way they would know this number and this number is equal to this number. So for example, if they did 6 and then they spun their spinner and they got a 5, they would color in 5 with one color and then use their other color to color the other one, and they would know 5 and 1 together make 6. And I have an example of this game that you can get for free in a link in the description box. Something I like to do with this game to kind of keep them moving along is I give them one for every number. So we start with 3, and that's the one that we do together, full group. And then after that, they get a little booklet that has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, so that as they're ready, they can move on to the next number and the next number, and then figure out how many more they needed to make whatever their target number is. And something that I really like about this is there's a finite number of boxes already on the recording sheet, so they won't ever count too many or count not enough. Like, they need to fill up the whole thing, so they don't have to worry about if they have the number 7, if they have the number 7 filled out correctly, it's always 7, and it's just different combinations of 7 or 8 or whatever the number is that they're working on. The next game is called Drop the Cubes. So the way that this game works is they have a paper with a circle on it, or a hoop rather, on it, and then they get the number of cubes that their target number, so let's say 8. So they would get 8 cubes, give them a little shake, and then drop the cubes. And then after they've dropped them, they would see how many are inside the circle and how many are outside the circle and record that to make the number 8. My kids really like this one because it's like controlled, because they feel like they're just like throwing things around. They're really not. It's more controlled than that, but they really like it. They're like, ooh, let me drop all of these cubes all over the place. And we definitely have to have talks about, like, you can't drop them too much because then you're just going to be running all over the place trying to find your cubes. Like, keep it a little contained, and they usually do a really good job with it. They really enjoy this game. The next game is called Shake and Spill or Toss the Chips. I've heard it both ways. So the way that you play this game is you get the target number of double-sided counters that you're using and give them a little shake and spill them out, and then you figure out how many are one color and how many are the other. So if you're using red and yellow counters, you would figure out how many are red and how many are yellow and write that down, and all within your target number, so they start to learn those number combinations. The next game is called Spin and Build Domino Edition. You spin their spinner, and each spinner side has a domino, and then they would count however many was on one side of the domino and build a tower to go with it, and then count however many was on the other side of the domino and use a different color to build that tower and put them together. So they could see visually that they made a 7 or 8 or whatever the target number is, but they could also see the 2 parts that made up that whole. The next game is called Snap 5 or Snap 10, and this game is really better played once they're a little more familiar with the different number combinations, so that they'll be able to snap when it's time. The way that you play Snap 5 or Snap 10 is you have to divide some cards evenly between the 2 players. So some cards might have 5 frames, some cards might have numerals, some cards might have finger patterns, and you divide those cards evenly between the players. And so then player 1 will flip over a card and player 2 will flip over a card, and they're looking to see if when they add their card and their partner's card together, it makes 5. And if it does make 5, the person who sees that it makes 5 first has to say snap. And when they say snap, they get those 2 cards and they get to keep it, and that's a point. And if it doesn't make 5, Then they leave those cards face up so that both players can see, and then flip over another card. And same thing, they're looking to see if with the new card and the old cards they can make the number 5. And if they can, they got to be the first one to say snap and then take their card. They keep going until all the cards have been used. This game is really fun and can get really fast paced, especially if your students are more familiar with the number combination. So I usually save this one till further along after they've done the other games so that they can get more into it and go a little bit faster with it. Then finally, I have a bonus performance task that you can do with your students to find the number combination. So on this paper, they have a recording sheet with whatever their target number is. So they would have a word problem, and then in that word problem, it would ask them to use 2 different colors to solve the word problem. So for example, there might be 5 crayons on their recording sheet that are not colored in, and the word problem might say, I have 5 crayons, some of them are red and some of them are yellow. What could my crayons look like? So then the kids would have to figure out, well, how many red or how many yellow, which is a possibility to answer the question. And if they finish that, on the other side, they can flip it over and it has lots of different little spaces so they can keep going to find all of the number combinations they can using their 2 colors. And there you have it. Those are some of my favorite games to help your students learn and practice decomposing numbers. Make sure to get your free sample of the How Many More game in the description below, and I will see you next time.